Hi, my name is Thomas Hansen. I work for the University of Oslo at the Department of Computer Science. I'm here today to talk about client certificates and how I used it to try to keep things simple and make it better for our users and colleagues. Quick agenda. First, I'm going to go through a little bit of background, some of my perceived problems, and some high-level walkthrough of how using certificates most parties may benefit. And in the end, I will talk about some of the lessons I learned. This is the building where I work. It's Ole Johan Dahl's building in Gerstadbekkdalen in Oslo. It's named after Ole Johan Dahl, which together with Kristen Nygaard are considered the fathers of the Simula programming language and object-oriented programming. Kristen Nygaard's building is on the other side of this building, and it's not visible on the picture. They were both awarded the Turing Award in 2001. We are also hosting the DIGIS2 project, which began in post-apartheid South Africa and is now a global open source project coordinated by the HISP Center at the University of Oslo. More than 73 countries worldwide use DIGIS2 for collecting and analyzing health data. 2.4 billion people, 30% of the world population, live in countries where DIGIS2 is used. And it is offered free of charge as a global public good. We also have leading robotics research groups and about 1,800 bachelor students, 600 master students, and more than 240 PhD students. 370 employees across 5 research sections and 18 research group. The IT section where I work are 9 people. And in about 2000, I was responsible for the Sun Solaris servers and clients. And there was one colleague who refused to give up his Mac, was running Mac OS Classic. And I was asked if I could support him, which I did. And in addition to Solaris and Mac OS, we had Silicon Graphics ERIX, Windows NT 2000, and some x86 Linux machines. Moving forward to 2011, when we moved into the Ole Johan Dahl building, which you saw the picture of, we had only one Solaris machine for compatibility and running old code. And we had about little more than 200 Mac OS machines, mostly because the building came with machines since they were furniture. So people could choose if they wanted a laptop or a stationary Mac. If they didn't choose, they got a Windows PC. Moving forward to 2021, we had almost the same Mac OS, mostly laptops, as Windows 10 machines, and a little bit more Linux machines. The Linux machines, we also count virtual machines and servers. For the whole university, we have both iOS and Android supported by our mobile device management system. The whole, most of these machines are iOS, more than 2,600 last time I checked, and about 130 Android devices, mostly used by janitors and physical security, things like that. MDM at UIO, we use an on-prem Workspace ONE AirWatch MDM solution. It has many components and, for me, many product names, which often change. We, as a whole, we prefer open source if we can. And since it's a quite large IT group at the university, responsibilities are split between different parts of the organization. Some problems with this workspace 1, for instance, is the dialog box that you can see here. That's most of the time there can be issues with the user experience, where it will ask you to log out, to log back in again. When you are logged in, why should you do it? This is for the firewall 2 encryption, but we can all agree, I think, that the wording should be a little bit better. Also, having MDM on-prem makes for a complicated setup. And I managed to find this diagram at VMware. And when things don't work, it's usually a lot of work to figure out where and what the problem is. Usually a good thing to start is to changelog to see if somebody has changed some network ACLs. But probably the most important server at my department, I purchased for just over 500 Canadian dollars. It's an espresso machine, and I use it to talk to the users and also for having meetings with the central IT. And I find that having a great espresso or a cappuccino really makes for a good work environment. So, home office and pandemics. Suddenly we were, a couple of years back, on very short notice, told to go home and work from there. Sysadmins and academic colleagues alike. Some of the problem is accessing on-prem services from home. I could set up a SSH tunnel. It worked, but even for me, the user experience weren't all that great. If you wanted to grab some files, you could use CyberDuck or MountainDuck or the VMware Horizon client, which is sort of like VMware's alternative to remote desktop client. But the need was for a more user-friendly solution. Started looking into what we had that we could utilize. All our Apple equipment was purchased with the device enrollment program since back in 2014. And we also have a Active Directory configuration, and the Active Directory controllers can be reached from the MDM server. We also had recently purchased a new Cisco AnyConnect VPN solution because the Microsoft Autopilot project running from the Windows group required it. And since we had COVID and working from home, it was a good excuse for actually doing something. So here's the basic configuration. We have the Active Directory certificate services that can issue certificates, self-signed but trusted. And when you see the certificate, it can get sent to the Workspace 1 MDM server. And the Workspace 1 server can package it with the root certificates and the configuration. And if the client is in a compliant state, usually that means that it runs the latest version of whatever operating system it's running, probably the latest or second latest version of macOS, then we can issue these certificates to the clients. And the client can then send the certificate to the VPN server with the software installed on the machine. And since the VPN, Cisco VPN service trust certificates from the Active Directory system, it will check if the certificates are valid or if they are revoked. If everything is okay, a connection will be made and you can access company resources, mount home directories, shares, network resources. I can use the Workspace 1 admin console. I can also access some log data from ELK. And many of my colleagues like to use network license servers And also there are the occasional office machines and lab resources. So it's much more user-friendly, and also the VPN service is quite stable, and it's very easy for the user to see that they are indeed connected. And it's all utilizing software and licenses that we all have already purchased. So there's no extra cost. I also looked into and started to configure Nomad, which is an open source project. I believe Joel Rennie will talk later at the conference. It's a great tool, and it allows us to give the user a friendly user interface, and it also can sync the local account password so that you can keep them in sync. And since the MDM server and the VPN and everything can reach the Active Directory controllers that also can issue Kerberos tickets, you can have Kerberos tickets, and with the Kerberos tickets, you don't need to type the password. So that's also quite nice if you need to access resources. So the positive effects that I have listed here, first and foremost, is a simple and better user experience. It's easier to see what's going on, easier to know, and also to document because it's more straightforward. And it's less support tickets for the IT services because it's less complex, and most issues can be resolved by the user themselves, maybe with the help of good documentation. And they can also use the mobile device management server, the intelligent hub, to reinstall the profile package if it got deleted. So they can do it themselves basically, or get help from the help desk quite easily. Another good thing is that we use the infrastructure that's already in place, and most of it is used by Windows clients, so that we can benefit from already knowledge in the organization. And also there's no cost of additional hardware or software, which is nice. And for IT security, they gain better control because they can revoke the certificates and or their profiles, and they only get issued to company-owned devices that are up to date and kept up to date. Also, the certificate includes the device serial number and the username, so it's possible to track down. Hopefully, this means that it's more in the interest of the user to make sure that their machine is kept up to date. And we end up with a fleet that's more up to date without having to nag people to update their machine, which is something I don't enjoy doing. There has been a couple of things to watch out for. First was the certificate expiration. When I started working on it, there was some prior work that had been done before, and the expiry was set to 2 days. I thought that was good because that meant that revocation wouldn't be that hard, because you might not have to do it, but ended up that it didn't work properly because it was batch-based workspace one. So settling for 1 week or 2 weeks is probably a better choice. Also, that the DNS search path, especially when the user is home and you don't have control, the Active Directory entries, they did not use the fully qualified domain name, so I had to send a payload to fix that as well. Also the documentation It's very important. If the user is required to use the keychain access, you might have to document that in a good way, because I found that most users don't enjoy using the keychain access. Also, testing. There's a NASA saying that test as you fly and fly as you test. So make sure that you're testing what you're actually going to be doing, and make sure most problems can be fixed by the user, so that it doesn't incur extra support tickets. Especially, we're also especially aware of upgrades of macOS and migration from backup using migration assistant. Those things can really bite you. Also, with scientific stuff, you will have a lot of people having long-running connections. So have a policy of how long you allow the running connections to go before they can be torn down. Also, of course, you need to use this thing yourself, because some problems you only see after quite some time of using it. And I've also found that reusing the Windows client configuration, if it exists and is usable, has saved me a lot of time, especially with dealing with security, because they already vetted it. So I could just say I'm using the same thing, which you said were okay. And also with regard to infrastructure changes, I found that it's very useful to be friendly with the infrastructure teams. And if you can, give them public credit and tell their boss when they're doing a great job, because these guys can really help you when you need when you're doing troubleshooting. So when you went from home office back to like a hybrid office, there was a new set of problems, mostly wireless problems. Our laptops, Mac laptops, live on a wireless network called eduroam, and it's a single SSID for both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And since stable network is required for video conferencing and lecturing, and we have a high AP density, but still there are problems. We use Wi-Fi 6, helps a little bit. You see here is a picture of my hallway. It has 4 access points visible. Even then, occasionally there are problems. So, and then you have Ethernet, because wired Ethernet, it just works. But the problem with 802.1x basic authentication, which means username and password, is that the user can bring whatever device he or she wants, as long as they can supply the username and password. Or you can have an Ethernet dongle tied to the MAC address. The network admin will probably not like either of those solutions. So what can you do? You can use certificate-based access to the Ethernet. I got a cheap 4K screen, and when I investigated it, I found that it, in addition to a USB hub and charging over USB-C, it had an built-in gigabit Ethernet adapter, and that means that both Windows and Mac users can share a desk, and you can use the same certificates that you used in the past for VPN. You can also use it for certificate-based 802.1x access, and you can limit 2 corporate devices with a valid certificate. Unfortunately, Apple currently does not support DisplayPort multi-stream transport, which Windows has. So if you're going to use several screens, you would need to connect them separately, or use a docking station, Thunderbolt docking station. I like to read books, and one of my favorite authors, Bruce Schneier, he says that only amateurs attack machines, professionals target people. And I hope that with making it user-friendly and making it easy for the users to access services, and that accessing the services requires that they keep their machines updated. Hopefully that frees up times that I would in the past use for nagging users to upgrade, and instead allow me to help them with their research or teaching needs. I like to focus on this Eisenhower matrix, because it's very easy to be in firefighting and nagging for upgrades, etc. in this urgent and important, and instead try to do interesting infrastructure projects that will help make the organization better and move the focus to the not urgent but important. Thank you. If you have questions, I will be on Discord. And also, if you do something like this, I can be contacted on any of the ways listed below. I will also be on Discord. This talk is recorded. Unfortunately, somebody cut my fiber connection, so I will try to listen in over phone 4G. So hope to see you there.